2021 after COVID pandemic. So what we'll be understanding is what has happened to the cloud computing industry after this pandemic. Right now we are in still a pandemic. So what happened while in the pandemic and what is going to happen in the future. And according to that, we'll be looking at the skills which you'll have to be thorough, or the skills which you'll have to obviously know while entering into a cloud role which you want to do maybe in the next year or after that in 2022. So now we'll be looking into why. So let me open the agenda. Why consider cloud? So while looking at that, I'll be showing you some facts and numbers about what happened to cloud computing in 2020 and what's going to happen in 2021. And then we'll look at the skills to have. So basically, let's say the skills which you need to have if you want to enter into the cloud computing field. And then more about cloud skills in that particular part. We'll be looking into the top and hottest skills which you would have to know if you're going to enter into the cloud industry next year. Also, finally, I'll be looking into the cloud certification path for cloud computing. I'll be showing what are the top job roles available, what are the top certifications available, and once that is done, I'll basically tell you where you can get started with cloud computing. So now let's start off with it. First, why consider cloud computing? Now, according to Forrester, the global public cloud infrastructure market will grow 35% to $120 billion in 2021. So this is basically a research taken up by Forrester, and they have concluded that the cloud infrastructure market will grow by 35% even during a worldwide pandemic. So now this is currently in the recovery, and while the pandemic happened and after the pandemic, while it was going on, many companies started shifting to a cloud-based approach because it was easier to handle. You can handle it from anywhere. You don't need to actually go and view the data centers because that is handled by the cloud providers themselves. So AWS or Azure or whoever or whichever cloud provider you're using, they basically manage your data center. So in this case, you don't need to manage, and that is why the cloud infrastructure market is growing every single year, and it will grow by 35%. So again, this is one of the reasons why you should take up cloud right now or in the upcoming year. The second point is that there will be a reshuffling of the top three public cloud providers in 2021 because the Alibaba cloud and the Google cloud are really close in the revenue market, that is the public cloud revenue. So they are really close, just 0.5 to 1% difference between them. Right now, Google Cloud is in the number 3 spot, but Alibaba Cloud is on the verge of taking the number 3 spot from Google Cloud, and they might come into the top 3 cloud providers. And once they come into the top 3 cloud providers, there again might be a huge demand for Alibaba Cloud as well. So right now, AWS, Azure, and GCP are talked about most. Then Alibaba Cloud also will enter that particular market. So now there will be a lot of changes as well. So that's why I wanted to mention this point, so that you have a lot of opportunities, not just AWS, Azure, GCP. You have IBM Cloud, you have Alibaba Cloud, you have VMware. So there are so many different cloud providers which you can take up. Next, according to a Flexera survey about what's going to happen in the year 2021 and what happened in the year 2020, serverless was among the top 5 fastest growing platform as a service cloud services for 2020. According to Flexera 2020 State of the Cloud report. According to their report, serverless technology is among the top 5 fastest growing platform as a service. And according to them, it is such a compelling model that applications will be designed and developed going forward to work with serverless. So the serverless technology will not be changed according to the current application design or how it is developed. The applications itself will be developed in such a way that they take advantage of the serverless technology. So the serverless technology is basically you don't need to worry about provisioning or maintaining these servers. So you just have to host your software or put in your application. It will take care of everything else. So that's why serverless is getting more popular every single day. So these are some of the facts of 2020 and 2021. So this is what I wanted to start off with. And one more is the market share, which is increasing. The amount of money which is being spent in cloud is increasing every single year. You can see there are 5 different topics talked about over here: platform as a service or business process services, infrastructure, application services, security services, and system infrastructure services. So now all of these are increasing. None of these are decreasing. Every single year, the input or the money spent on all of the cloud tools are increasing because a lot of companies are shifting to a cloud-based approach. And this is provided by Gartner. And one more is from Forbes and multiple other sources. So this is from Forbes, this is from Monster, and these are from Gartner. So this basically shows that cloud computing is increasing, the market value is increasing for cloud computing every single year. Companies who are taking up cloud computing are increasing. So basically, when a lot of companies take up cloud computing, the number of jobs which are available increases, and it basically increases the chance for you to get into a company being a cloud computing professional. So now, according to Gartner, 95% of all the cloud security failures will be the customer's fault in 2020. So 2020 is going to end. So 95% of all the cloud security faults were actually the customer's fault, not the cloud provider's fault. So they are basically telling that the cloud technologies are getting more and more secure each and every year. And one more in the right side is 75% indicate they have a cloud first strategy. That is, of all the organizations they have visited, about 75% of all the organizations are planning to move to a cloud based environment from an on-premise setup. And from Forbes, you can see by 2022, the public cloud market will soar up to $331 billion. This is again according to Gartner. And over here from Forbes, cloud computing is crucial to the future of our societies. So again, you can go ahead and read all of these articles. And also, if you go to monster.com, even there was an article about why it's a great time to get a job in cloud computing because all the companies are moving to cloud computing. Even if you get into cloud computing right now, you can basically be in a top role in 3 to 4 years. Okay, so we've seen that. And one more reason is all the top major companies are using cloud computing. If you want to get into one of these companies, you want to work in one of these companies, then a good bet would be to be a cloud computing professional and get into these companies as a cloud architect or a cloud engineer or whichever cloud role you want to get into. And so after seeing all this, your question would be, are actually jobs available in this roles? So when I searched the keyword cloud computing in India, in basically Indeed.com, there were 2,940 jobs. So this is only in India, and this is only at a particular point of time. When I searched, there were 2,940 jobs with the keyword or the job title cloud computing in it. Also in LinkedIn, there were 3,000 plus results. So now there are an abundance of jobs you can basically go and apply and get into, but you will basically have to be skilled enough. So that's what we're going to look into. What are the skills you'll have to become a cloud computing professional? And before moving on to the skills part, basically the average salary of a cloud engineer, according to ZipRecruiter and also Indeed.com. So in the USA, it is $128,134 per annum. This is the average salary for a beginner. It might be lesser than this, it might not be. It basically depends according to the company. So it may be lesser than this, but this is the average. So basically, it can go very high as well when you become a senior or when you become a manager. In India, it's 6.8 lakhs per annum, and in the UK, it is 60,000 pounds per annum. So these are the average salaries, guys. So now these are the reasons why you can consider cloud computing. You have a lot of jobs. The cloud computing industry is growing every single year. There are all the major companies, all the top companies, top IT companies are into cloud computing. So now, what are the skills to have as a cloud computing engineer or a person who is into cloud computing? First, cloud service providers. Knowing a cloud service provider, like a top service provider like AWS, Azure, or GCP, right now we can basically consider Alibaba Cloud and IBM Cloud also within that. So, but these three are the top, even though they are basically trying to catch up to the third spot. So now you'll obviously have to be skilled at least in one of them, if not two or three. So that's your capacity. If you're skilled enough in one particular tool, that's more than enough. Also, you will have to be skilled in multiple services within the cloud provider. So basically, if you take AWS, you have to be skilled in EC2, VPC, RDS, S3. There are so many other tools you'll have to be skilled in. Same thing goes with Azure and GCP. So you'll have to be skilled in all the relevant services which your company is going to ask you to work on. Coming to the next one is networking. So cloud is basically networking because you're going to create infrastructures and connect them via network. So you use networks to basically make multiple servers communicate together, make a server to communicate with a database engine, connect a database engine to a data warehousing cluster. So you do all of this using networks. So networking is really important, and you should be familiar with performance optimization techniques on how to create a network so that it makes data transfer or it makes communication even faster. Also, you should be aware of how to basically automate large configuration changes. If your network is large, if you have a lot of servers, you should basically know how to automate those configuration changes in all of the servers without having to do a lot of work. Coming to the third one is Linux skills. So why do you need Linux skills is because 90% of all these servers which are running on cloud runs on Linux. So obviously if you enter a company to basically take up a cloud role, there is a 90% chance that they are using Linux servers. So make sure you have at least basic knowledge of Linux, basic usage. You should at least know the basic commands and also monitoring tools like top and ps. And also shell scripting is important, but if you do not know about shell scripting, start learning and understand it. Just understand the basics of cron tab. So if you understand all of this, you can basically automate small repetitive and mundane tasks, and that would be really helpful for you.
Okay, guys, a quick info. If you're looking for an end-to-end training session on cloud, we at Intellipaat are providing you a master program on cloud architect certification, and it basically covers all the things you need to land a cloud job. It covers 11 different courses and covers 26 industry-based projects and in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft. So now let's continue with this session.
So now these are the top skills, and there are more skills. One is DevOps skills. So DevOps is obviously a relevant skill to cloud computing. I'll basically tell you why right now. Because tools like Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, GitHub, they basically connect very well with cloud, and you can basically create a container and upload it to a cloud server and use the cloud server to host your application over there. And you can use Kubernetes to basically orchestrate all the containers which are hosted on the cloud. So it goes really well with cloud. DevOps skills goes really well with cloud. So make sure you learn at least the basic DevOps skills. Maybe if you don't know DevOps while you're entering into a cloud role, but make sure you learn DevOps before moving on to another company or getting into a higher position. And then programming and database skills. So you don't need to have a programming skill or a database skill if you're going to be a software administrator or if you're going to be a architect, because in that case you'll just have to create architectures and maintain and monitor the cloud infrastructure. But if you're going to work with the development team, or if you're going to be a cloud developer, in that case having programming knowledge is really important. Even for a cloud architect, understanding how programming languages work and understanding how to host applications online will be really helpful while creating architectures to basically host those applications. So now programming languages, like high level programming languages like Python or Java, is more than enough. You learn one or two of them, it is really helpful for you. Also database tools, for example, like RDS in so while you're using a cloud provider, so they have database engines. There is RDS in AWS, SQL databases in Azure, same thing in GCP. So while using them, you will basically have to understand how databases work. So also having database skills is really important. Coming to the last point is security and disaster recovery. So this is one of the most underrated skills when it comes to cloud computing. Nobody ever talks about this. At the first, they talk about AWS, Azure, GCP. They talk about Linux. They talk about networking, DevOps, and all that. But they forget the basic part, that is security. Because security is really important for cloud computing. You're going to host your application in another company's data center, which you are renting. So basically, even though their network is secure enough to handle your data, to handle your application, but you'll have to be very sure to make your application and make your architecture secure enough so that none of there is no unauthorized access or there is no loophole for hackers to get into. Also, disaster recovery should be one of your major skills. So in this case, you'll have to recover whenever there is a disaster happening. For example, you have your application hosted on only one location. So if that location's data center goes down, your application will be down. So to avoid this, you should have your applications running on multiple regions and multiple availability zones. Even though one region's availability zone goes down, your application still will your application will be still running and it will be still available for everyone. So once this particular region comes up, you can do a failover and give the original region its full authority. So now these are the top skills to have if you're getting into cloud computing. So now let's talk more about the cloud skills. So to talk about that, I wanted to show you some of the job descriptions, because these skills which I told are not going to be the same for every single job role in cloud computing. Each job role will have a separate set of skills required. So now comparing some of the job roles, for example, let's have a cloud infrastructure engineer, let's have a cloud support engineer and a cloud engineer. So in this particular case, in Cisco, you'll be handling customer issues. So either it can be the company's problem, or it can be in the customer's data center or on the customer's site. So you should be able to solve the cloud problems which are arising. So now you should be able to work with DevOps, you should be able to work with AWS and services within AWS like VPC, EC2 instances, and related services. So as I told you, in this case, you should have DevOps skills, you should have cloud skills, you should also have soft skills because you'll be handling customers. And over here, you also see monitoring. So you should also know how to monitor and manage cloud tools. Okay, now coming to the second one is a cloud support engineer. So in this case, if you look at the first line of preferred qualifications, you can see IP security, VPN, IPERF, MTR routing protocols, secure shell, network monitoring, and troubleshooting tools. So you should be basically an expert in networking. So as a cloud support engineer, you should know all of this. And also you should know AWS, Google Cloud, and they also asked Rackspace in this particular job role. So you should also know cloud providers. Then you should know a scripting language. So they're asking for some programming or scripting experience. It can be programming or scripting, it's not both. So if you know programming language or a scripting language, that would be helpful. And finally, managing full stack applications. So now if you obviously worked on a programming language, or if you have worked on developing solutions and developing applications, in that case you might have experience with managing full stacks. So now if you see, in this case, you should be good in networking, cloud tools, and also programming. So three skills are covered over here. So again, not all of the skills are covered here. They did not ask you to know any DevOps tools. They did not ask you to know any disaster recovery or management or security skills. They didn't ask you to have any database skills as well. They only asked for programming skills. And coming to the last one, which is cloud engineer. So in this case, they're asking you to have AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, API and scripting. And again, in the bottom, if you see Python for scripting, and for configuration management tools, they're asking you to know Puppet, Ansible, and Chef. So now they're asking you to know cloud computing providers, scripting language. They're asking you to know configuration management tools, which comes under DevOps. They're asking you to know Python as a scripting language, but also you should know it as a programming language. So in this case, four different skills are covered. Also, they're asking you to know how an agile environment works. So yeah, it comes under DevOps. If you can basically relate to it. So now all of these job roles are having different skill sets, which are basically you should have different skill set to get into each of these job roles. So the thing is, you'll have to decide which job role you want to get into and then basically get into it. So even though you do not have one of the skills over here, let's say you do not know Ansible and Chef, you only know Puppet, not an issue. You can still apply for this job and get into it and then learn those two tools, because you already know one configuration management tool, Puppet, so it obviously can learn Ansible and Chef. So it doesn't matter if you do not know one particular skill, you can basically learn it, but basically your skill set should consist of all the major tools which are asked: AWS, Azure, or GCP, or all of them, or at least two of them. So that is important. Then tools within those environments are important. If the job role expects you to have DevOps skills, learn the basic DevOps tools. That is also important. Scripting is also important. Networking is also important. So These are the top skills, guys. So now let's look at the top 5 skills looked in a cloud engineer. So cloud engineer is a generic role which I'm just stating. There are cloud architect, there is a sysops administrator, so there are multiple roles. We'll talk about that later. So now this is a cloud engineer is basically a generic role I'm talking about in any cloud industry or any cloud role you're looking into. So now according to indeed.com, the most sought out skill in a cloud engineer is Amazon Web Services or AWS. Then comes Python, scripting, Linux, and Azure. So these are the top 5 skills which are looked in a cloud engineer. So obviously, make sure you learn AWS, guys. Whatever it is, make sure you learn AWS and Azure. Make sure you know Linux. Also, Python is really important because most of the job roles are asking for scripting and Python. And also, Python in the sense basically you should also know scripting. So now these are the top 5 skills, and also what are the hottest skills which are going to be looked for in the year 2021. So now either Amazon Web Services and Python do not change, they remain the same. So in the top 5 list, there were 10 basically, but I just wanted to show you the top 5 hottest skills. First one is DevOps. As I told you, DevOps goes really well with cloud, and if you want to get into cloud, take up DevOps as well. Once you complete, let's say AWS or Azure, take up DevOps and complete that as well, because DevOps is really important and it is the hottest cloud skill for 2021. And then comes basically what Amazon Web Services, and then comes Kubernetes, and then comes Python, and then Terraform. So Kubernetes and Terraform are separate tools, but they can also come under DevOps, but they are separate tools. So Terraform basically it is like CloudFormation. You can create a template to deploy the same architecture again and again in AWS or Azure or GCP. So now these are the hottest cloud skills, guys, for 2021. Make a note of it. These are the top 5 skills. These are the hottest skills. Okay, so now let's get into certification paths and in cloud computing. Okay, so before moving on to certification paths, do you work in a different role basically and you want to get into cloud computing? So I'll just give you a basic idea about how you can do that. So let's say you're a programmer, you're working on .NET, maybe C Sharp or anything. So now, if you want to get into cloud, there is obviously an opportunity for you to get into cloud. There are two options, whichever it is, whichever company you're working in, there are two options. Either you stay in the company to get into a cloud role if the company is having a cloud role, or you can get into a different company with a cloud role. So now let's say you are working on .NET, so you are a software developer. So now the only thing you'll have to learn is cloud. So once you learn cloud, you can basically get into cloud as a cloud developer. So next slide I'll talk about all the different job roles, and then coming to Linux and Windows admin. So in a Linux and Windows admin, you would be administering your local network, but in this case you'll be maintaining or managing the cloud network. Again, there is a role for that. I'll be talking about that. Tech support, again, you can get into cloud. If you already know how to basically deal with technical solutions, handle customers, there is also an opportunity. As I showed you before, there's a cloud support engineer role. Once you get into that, you can also basically become an administrator. Once that is done, if you're into VMware, obviously VMware majorly concentrates on virtualization. Cloud computing is basically based on virtualization, because without virtualization, you cannot have servers on cloud. So again, if you're working in VMware, you can again get into a cloud role. Then middleware, storage, ETL, whatever it is, if you're working on middleware, again, you would obviously work on programming languages. You can get into cloud as how a .NET person can get into storage. There are storage services uh, ranging from just storing object files, for example, music or video or audio files, to data warehousing. There are so many other storage tools which you'll have to learn in cloud. And then ETL, so extract, transform, and load. If you're from an ETL background, you again have a chance of getting into cloud. You can become, let's say, a cloud big data engineer or a big data engineer who works on cloud. So again, you have a chance. So whichever role you are in, a technical role, there is obviously a chance for you to get into cloud computing. So the top 5 roles are cloud solutions architect, cloud developer, sysops admin, cloud DevOps engineer, and cloud support engineer. So the job role which I would suggest for all of you is cloud solutions architect, because a cloud solutions architect is the person who will basically, once they become a senior, they'll basically maintain or manage a team of cloud developers, solutions architects, DevOps engineers, developers, support engineers, so all of them. So basically, a solutions architect would architect the complete plan to create a cloud infrastructure. So in this case, that is the top job role. And then comes developer and sysops admin. So as a cloud developer, you'll be developing solutions, developing software solutions, and creating software projects for cloud. So you'll be creating your software so that it can be hosted on the cloud and benefit from the cloud computing infrastructure. And so this job role will suit for a previously a person who already has software development experience, like a .NET developer, which I mentioned. Can be a Java developer, Python developer, doesn't matter. You can get into cloud developer role. Next comes a cloud sysops admin. So in this particular role, if you already have been an administrator, Linux or a Windows administrator, you can again, or just a IT administrator, you can again get into a cloud sysops admin role. But even though you were an administrator or a programmer, you can still get into solutions architect if you have the relevant skills. And then one job role which is above all of these three is a cloud DevOps engineer. So in this case, you should know cloud and also DevOps tools. So other job roles, maybe they will ask one or two cloud and DevOps tools, but as a cloud DevOps engineer, you should know all of the cloud services. Let's say in AWS, you should know most of the cloud services, and Azure or GCP, whatever it is. And also in DevOps, you should know multiple DevOps tools. Now, coming to a cloud support engineer. So in this case, I already explained to you. Over here, you can see a cloud support engineer role. So there are multiple support engineer roles. This is a Linux support engineer, so you should know Linux. You should have scripting experience. You should have experience with these cloud tools. You should have experience with networking. So like that, it varies across the job roles, but your main task would be to solve customer problems and the company's problems which are related to cloud computing. So these are the top 5 job roles. Again, I just wanted to give you a brief about them. If you have any doubts, you can go ahead and ask to the person who will be joining at the end of the session. So now, I just wanted to give a brief about all the certifications, and that would be the end of my part of this session. So now, top salaries with respect to cloud computing certifications. So the number one certification which pays you a lot is a Google Cloud Certified Cloud Architect Professional. So the professional certification provides you the maximum salary, which is $139,529 per annum. Second and third comes the Certified Solutions Architect, Associate, and Certified Developer Associate AWS certifications. So the Solutions Architect one pays you 132,000, and the developer one pays you 130,000 per annum respectively. So these are the top three highest paying cloud certifications. Again, if you want to learn more about the cloud certifications or which cloud certification would best suit you for your job role, if you have those kinds of doubts, if you have career related doubts, please put down your questions in the questions bar and will be answered by my colleague at the end of the session. Okay, now, so this I wanted to just show because, as I already told you, these are the three commonly taken certifications and these are the most popular certifications. If you finish Solutions Architect Associate, you can go ahead with a professional. If you have finished SysOps Admin or developer role, you can go ahead with a DevOps engineer role. So this is basically a foundational course. This can be skipped. You can directly take up any one of these certifications. But if you want to also uh, get the foundational course, the cloud practitioner course, you can still take up that and clear the certification. And once you are into cloud, then if you want to get into one particular specialty within cloud computing, you can take up advanced networking or security, Alexa skill builder, machine learning, data analytics, and database. So these are all the certifications provided by AWS right now, and these are the certifications which will be available in the year 2021. So I just wanted to talk about the AWS certification path because it is pretty similar with Azure and GCP. You can basically compare the certifications with Azure and GCP as well. So these are the top certifications, guys. I would suggest you to take up either solutions architect, sysops admin, or developer, or if you are confident enough that you can basically become a DevOps engineer, take up cloud and DevOps engineer professional role, and you can basically work on it and get into it. So if you look at the leftmost part, for foundational, you should have at least 6 months of experience, associate 1 year, professional 2 years. So the thing is, it basically measures your talent, it basically measures your understanding of these cloud tools. So if you have enough knowledge to basically clear the professional examination, only then you'll have to go with it. But you can also get help to do that. So how to get help? You have two ways. You can invest, basically you can invest your time, or you can invest your money. So if you invest your time, you can basically check out our Intellipaat blog, which is basically intellipaat.com/blog, or go to our YouTube channel Intellipaat and check out all the tutorials and all the courses we provide for free and learn from there. Or you can basically invest your money. You can basically take up a course from us, an online course where you can basically learn these cloud tools or basically concentrate on one particular cloud certification and complete it, and then apply for the certifications and clear them. Once you completed that, you can basically get into that particular job role.
Okay, guys, a quick info. If you're looking for an end-to-end training session on cloud, we at Intellipaat are providing you a master program on cloud architect certification, and it basically covers all the things you need to land a cloud job. It covers 11 different courses and covers 26 industry-based projects and in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft.